Hi guys, it's Misty from the Book Rat, and we are once again taking a look at some of my most anticipated or most interested in new releases for June. So I did a video on May releases last month and did a blog post in April, which hopefully you guys have found helpful, and I know they can be rather long. It's no exception this time, so just, grab a snack, settle in, and prepare yourself for just a laundry list of books that are coming out this month that I am intrigued by or that I think you might be interested in. As with last month, all of the books are going to be listed in the description if you are watching this on YouTube, and then there will be a blog post linked that has the books, the covers, the titles, and the synopses all laid out for you in a blog post. So if you're watching it on the blog, it's below. You can find it there. But if you're watching on YouTube, click through to see all the covers and the synopses and all of that. But I'm going to get straight into it, and I'm starting with the ones that I'm actually the most excited for, and then I'll also share some sequels and authors to watch and things like that at the end. But right into the ones that are piquing my interest. I'm going to start off with Bring Me Their Hearts. This is not one that I'm anticipating because I've read it, but it was one of my most anticipated books of this summer, and one that I think you should have on your radar. I just reviewed this recently, so I will leave a link to that review, but yeah, it's fantasy and snarky and lovely, and I think that you should maybe look into it. My Plain Jane. This one intrigues me for a number of reasons. First of all, it's written by more than one author. That seems to be a theme this month. There are a lot of duos and trios working together on books, but also it is a retelling of Jane Eyre, but in a very meta way, about Jane and about Charlotte Bronte, who wrote Jane Eyre, and it just seems really different and quirky, and as you know, quirky is one of my buzzwords. The cover definitely gives that idea. It seems like a very classic, pretty, typical cover, and then it's got all these little scrawls on it that add that little quirk factor, and I'm super curious about it. The Summer of Salt is also one of my most anticipated, possibly my most anticipated book, or the one I'm most curious about, and that is because it hits a lot of my buzzwords. I just had an updated buzzwords chat recently and talked about sort of intergenerational stories and soft magical realism, just like community magic, if that makes sense, and the synopsis for this immediately hits on both of those things, which means it's bumps it way up on the buzzwords list and makes me want it in my hands right now. I have a lot on the list this time around that I'm less intrigued by and more have questions about, and the questions are intriguing me. The first one like that on the list is Neverworld Wake. When I first read the synopsis, I was kind of really not feeling it right up until the very end of the synopsis, like the last couple lines, and I'm like, what? I think maybe a lot of people are anticipating it. I wasn't, and now I kind of am. I'm intrigued. I have questions. I'm curious. I want to sate that curiosity. I think I talked recently in a book haul about how I've been craving kind of thriller-ish things, how I used to read them a lot and then I kind of stopped for a while, but then I've had a few within the last few years that have really sort of brought back that desire for them, and that means that there are a number of thrillers on this list, and the one I'm most excited about is Blood Will Out. The synopsis itself just sounds so gripping and it plunges you right in, and yeah, I want to know. I want to know what's happening there. The Fall of Innocence is another one. It seems like there are questions. It kind of reminds me of After the Woods by Kim Savage. Not that it's anything like that necessarily, but the idea of there being kind of questions about what really happened in a trauma just has me intrigued. The cover weirdly gives me the creeps. It's a very simple cover, but it combined with the title and synopsis just kind of makes my skin crawl. I'm not gonna lie, the cover was definitely what caught my eye on this next one. Your Destination is on the left, but once I actually stopped to look into it, the synopsis intrigues me too. It's about art, which probably should have been on my buzzwords list because it definitely is one, but also I like the idea of it being a story about someone who kind of grew up in a nomadic lifestyle, wanting to put down roots and wanting to pursue something. It's kind of the opposite of what you normally see. So you normally see stories of people from stable lives who want to go off and do something fantastical, be a movie star or something, and you have the parents kind of being irritated by that. This is the opposite. They're like, why are you leaving our free lifestyle for something settled? And I think that is interesting. I think the art aspect is interesting, and just kind of where the synopsis goes, I'm really intrigued, and the cover is damn beautiful. There are a couple of sequels on my list this time around that I am interested in. The first is Rage. This is the sequel to Roar, which I read last year during the first 30-day book binge, I believe. The next one is starting up July 1st, just as a reminder. It was one of the books I read last year that I wasn't anticipating really thinking was so great, and especially when I first started it, I think I almost gave up on it. And by the time that I had finished, I was like in it, loved it, wanted the next book. So now the next book is finally coming out. I would like it in my hands, please. The other sequel that's on the list is Brujaborn, which is the sequel to Labyrinth Lost. Though I had some reservations about Labyrinth Lost, not enough to not make me curious to see where this one's going to go, and I think it's a series that's going to get better. I'm pretty sure I reviewed the first one in both of these cases, so if I did, I will link them below, but yeah, I want more, again, intergenerational magic. Definitely gonna get that from the, what's the series called? The Brooklyn Brujas? I think something like that. You're gonna get that from this series. There are a couple of sort of folklore fairy tale-ish things on my list, which of course are gonna be on my list. The first is called The Trail of Lightning. This one uses, I wanna say Navajo lore? Something? I'm pretty sure that's what it is. But in a kind of post-apocalyptic setting, and I'm just so intrigued by just everything about the synopsis. I want it. And then the other one is an anthology, actually, called 1,000 Beginnings and Endings, that is all stories set in, either set in or inspired by, or both, South and East Asia. A lot of own voices work in there, and I think anthologies are a great way to discover new authors to love and kind of get a sampler of people's styles, and I love a good short story collection anyway, but when you add in a lot of sort of folklore and myth to the mix, I'm sold. Also sort of on the quirky, slightly magical realist front is Invisible Ghosts? Wow. I don't even know how that happened. Is Invisible Ghosts by Robin Schneider, which is an author that I know a lot of people love. I haven't read anything by her, but this one sounds really interesting. It's contemporary, and this girl is essentially being haunted by her brother, and I don't know, it just sounds intriguing, so rare contemporary on the list for me. Also a contemporary on the list is Sometime After Midnight, which sounds like a Cinderella retelling, sort of, about two boys, one who is like a rock star actor or something, I don't remember, but he's basically the Prince Charming. And I think the idea of having a gay boy Prince Charming tale sounds lovely. And of course, if it is Cinderella-ish, it's on the list because it's fairy tale retelling. We already know this. They automatically go on the list. I have a few more that are tentatively on the list that I just have questions about. The first is Soulstruck, which just has such a strange synopsis about a girl who wants to get struck by lightning so that she can find out who her soulmate is. That's just weird enough to end up on the Misty list. Another is Dive Smack, which I actually hadn't heard of until it showed up. This one is another thriller, psychological drama, but it gives me questions, and I want to know. So, I don't know. I'm curious. I'm curious. There are a lot of honorable mentions on this list that also give me questions. So why don't we go ahead and get into those honorable mentions. The first one I'm going to mention isn't one that necessarily gives me questions, and it's one that I debated whether it's an honorable mention or whether it's one that I'm looking forward to, and that's City of Bastards. There are things about the synopsis that are very buzzwordsy that I am intrigued by, but also it seems so chock full of them that I feel like it's going to be a bit much, and when I was reading the synopsis I wasn't sure if this was a sequel to something, so it's kind of like in limbo for me right now, but I'm curious about it, and if you know anything more about it, know if it's a sequel or anything, let me know. I should have done my legwork on this, but I didn't. Similarly, The Bird and the Blade gave me questions, it gave me similar vibes. Seems fantasy. The cover is really cool. I love the idea of the feathers being sort of bloody blades. It's an interesting cover idea, but I'm just not entirely sure if I'm sold yet. I don't know, I feel like part of me is starting to not get burned down on fantasy, because that will never happen, but there's a sort of sameness I'm seeing. I mean, it's always been there, but I guess I just am wanting something different right now. So I think that's part of why I'm a little hesitant, but I don't know. It's an honorable mention, but I'm not sure how much I'm anticipating it. I think I'm gonna need to wait for some feedback, kind of see where the buzz lies. Frequency is one that I have a ton of questions about. The synopsis is so strange. It's so strange. And Entangled does that sometimes. Like, they put out some books and I'm like, what? But then they're so like compulsively readable. So I'm curious about Frequency, but I don't know how I feel about it. And that curiosity, it's one of those books I feel like I'm gonna have to read because I need to know like what in the world is going on there. So I have questions. Now You See Her is another one. Again, this is one that's written by more than one author, which I find interesting. I should count how many of the books on this list are written by more than one author, because there were a lot of them. I was surprised. This one has two characters who end up kind of swapping bodies, and something traumatic, like an almost abduction going on. And I'm curious. I'm curious. And I'm curious to see if like each author is writing from one perspective, if they switch when the bodies switch, or like what's going on there. I just want to know. Another is Tell Me No Lies. Now this is a sequel. It's a follow-up to Follow Me Back, which I really don't know much about, but the synopsis of this just kind of had me intrigued. Obviously, I won't be jumping into this one anytime soon because I haven't read the first book, but I don't know, it just sounded really interesting. Maybe slight Misery vibes? I don't know. I had question marks about a lot of books that were coming out this month, but those were the ones that kind of made my honorable mentions list. There are also a ton of authors to watch and sequels and other buzzwords-y books coming out this month, so just quickly I'm going to run through some of those. So if you're a fan of Renee Ahdieh, Smoke in the Sun is coming out. This is a sequel to Flame in the Mist. Nightblood, the conclusion to the Frostblood series by Ellie Blake, is coming out this month. The fourth book in the Merciless series by Danielle Vega is coming out this month. I don't really know much about this series, but the synopsis for this one references Amanda Knox and was intriguing, so let me know. Is this a series I should look into? Julia Unbound, the conclusion to the Witch's Child series, is coming out this month. Again, I want to know, is this one that I should look into? The Emerald Sea by Rochelle Mead, which is the follow-up to The Glittering Court, is coming out this month. Is it the follow-up? Is there a book in between those two? I feel like there was, like a Ruby something. Not entirely sure. I did read most of The Glittering Court and then just kind of petered off, so I don't know. Should I revisit this series? A Reaper at the Gates, which is part of the Ember in the Ashes series, is coming out, and I have that. I have Ember in the Ashes on my shelves and have yet to read it. I know that's a very talked about book, so if you feel the need to push it on me, let me know in the comments. But I don't know if this is like a companion novel or if it's like a direct series thing, but either way, you can get your hand on it this month. Save the Date by Morgan Matsson's coming out, and this one actually makes me want to read contemporary. The cover looks really cute and funny, and it just draws you right in, and I've heard endless good things about Morgan Mattson. I do have something by her on my shelves. I cannot remember for the life of me what it is. I know that there are some serious Morgan fangirls out there, and this one looks really cute and funny, and so I can understand why. 99 Lies by Rachael Vincent is coming out this month. I know a lot of people are Rachael Vincent fans. I have not been able to get into her work, but if you like her, 99 Lies. It's coming out in June. I have a couple of random honorable mentions. One is Wild Blue Wonder. This one, just the cover reminds me of a coloring page, so I just wanted to point it out to you. Another is Supermoon. This one I'm putting on the list because it does have a buzzword that I recently talked about, which is aliens. So if you're into that, maybe you'll be into this, but it just didn't, the synopsis didn't quite do it for me. The Art of French Kissing seems like it would be cutesy. The Boyfriend Bracket is one that actually almost made it onto my full-on I'm intrigued by this and I want it list. It seems really charming, and I kind of want to bump it up the list. but I didn't, so for right now it's an honorable mention. Fat Girl on a Plane is one that I know a lot of you are looking forward to, and a lot of you have been wanting some fat rep, so maybe this is one to look into. Not the Girls You're Looking For also seems like a good contemporary. There was another one. Oh, there was another one I meant to have on this list, and I don't remember what it was called now. We'll find it, and I will insert the picture here. All That I Can Fix is another contemporary, but also sounds really quirky. Really, really quirky, and I'm curious about it. Cover is very quirky and cute too. Thief of Happy Endings. This one I feel like is a lot of people's buzzwords. I don't know where the origin of the teen horse camp thing started, but I know so many people love it, myself included. So if you like horse books and horse ranches and all kinds of stuff like that, Thief of Happy Endings might be one to look into. Always Forever Maybe is another contemporary but much darker, I would say, story of control and kind of abuse. Maybe a good one to kind of have on hand in classrooms and libraries. The last few that I have on the list, I'm not entirely sure what's going on. I wrote a little H next to them. I don't know what the H stands for. Anyway, I have Monday's Not Coming, Whisper of the Tide, and Eden Conquered still on the list. The Eden Conquered one is just, that one also has some question marks. It is a Cain and Abel retelling, kind of, like a fantasy Cain and Abel. I don't know, I have questions. Whisper of the Tide and Monday's Coming, or Monday's Not Coming, seem to have nothing in common. So I don't know what the H meant, but there you have it. That is a whole long list of books that are coming out in June, some that I'm anticipating highly, some that I'm just sort of curious about, and then a whole lot of things that I have questions about, or that are sequels to things, or authors to watch, or have some buzzwords. So as I said, everything will be listed and linked in the description, and on the blog post I'll have the covers and the synopsis and everything that you could want to know about these books. I'm sure I missed things. There were plenty of other books that I debated putting on this list, but it was already so long that I didn't. But if there are any that you feel like I definitely missed or definitely need to talk about, or that you're most anticipating, leave those in the comments so that I can see them and other people can see them. And if you've read any of them, if you have sort of early sneak peek thoughts on any of them, point us in the direction of the good ones, or tell us which ones to steer clear of. But that is all for this very long June anticipated list. Let me know if you guys like these in video format and if you want one for July, because I have started compiling my list. But until next time, that is all for now. Thank you guys for watching, and as always, happy reading!